we've been rather forced to defend ourselves against a video that I think he thought it was a real zinger, but I mean, it doesn't stand up to scrutiny. It had us fucking laughing at how dumb some of it was. So that'll be fun. Okay, so let's kick the show off.
Absolutely.
Isin Hart made a really fucking stupid video about us. I'm more than happy to say that. I mean, his opening, right? It's like, if we had have done all of this a lot more, you know, sort of slowly and respectfully, you know, then I think we could have operated a little bit differently about this. But he just came out swinging with clickbait trash. He came out with that. He also said numbers don't lie, people do. Yeah. And he basically lied about us at a few points in the video, was really stupid with some of his criticisms, completely missed loads of points in purpose, and generally speaking, it's a bit of a trash video. 20-odd thousand people have seen the thing, and at that stage, from our position, it's like, well, a lot of people will just listen to a thing.
Of course, yeah.
And, you know, they'll come with whatever takeaway is there. So, look, we can't have... We can't have big lies going on. At the end of the day, if you talk shit, you talk wild shit on the internet, you know people are going to respond. You can't cry about it. So we're going to have to get into this. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. And actually, for the people who don't want drama and are just interested in the numbers with World of Warcraft, we actually have more numbers for you. Mm-hmm. So,
yep, courtesy of Dakor, who took the opportunity to go and delve a little bit deeper just to see if there's anything we did miss or anything that, you know, could have been better examined. And it turns out that I believe the vast majority of the data goes along with what we were saying, because we looked at it.
And even some of the shit that he brings up with Mythic. It's so funny. Did he forget? I can't believe this, but I mean, for us, just Mythic wasn't that important. That's why we did normal. We'll get into the specifics soon. Yeah. But does he not know that the average number of pulls required to clear Mythic Sanctum of Domination is like half of Castle Nathria?
Well, that would have required...
Majorly, you don't have roadblocks like Stone Legion Generals, and Sylvanas is easier than Denathrius.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been, you know... wouldn't quite have been a React video, you know?
Yeah, I mean, could you imagine the man who feels high enough conviction to put out this wild shit about us doesn't really bother to do a big think. So in terms of what we've got, if you screen share it over to me.
Yep, it's on them.
Ah, yeah, sweet. So we've got a breakdown of just a bunch of the misinformation and stuff in his video, and then data that I think you guys will find quite interesting. First month heroic guild rating data, and I mean, just so much more. So much more if you're interested in some average pull counts. We've got that stuff as well, which is all quite fun. Yep. Quite fun. And yeah, no, good shit. So I guess you did this bit. So
yeah, so
kick us off.
Yeah, for a little bit of context, this was me watching through the video, because I was the one who led that video on the numbers and stuff. I was the one who did, you know, me and Dakor did a significant amount of research for it. So I watched the video and thought, well, I know what I'm talking about here, so I'm going to go through and see, you know, from an initial perspective, I was, you know, kind of like, well, clickbait trash, okay, this is a good start, as well as how the video opened. But I was also just kind of thinking, you know, maybe we made a mistake. Maybe, like, I made genuine mistakes, because I'm not I'm not a data scientist. So I'm like, okay, I'd like to see how my methodology was flawed. And then I go through it, and I'm like, oh, well, we're off to a hell of a start here, aren't we? Because the video immediately opens up with a character assassination of you, which, you know, by definition, you know, for the past couple of years, does extend to everyone under the Bellular Gaming organization. So that's a pretty, you know.
People forget when it comes to WoW videos, that is me, it is you, it is Jared, it is also Dakor more recently.
Yep.
You know, supporting with, like, he doesn't write scripts, but he does a lot of, he's a maths degree, right? Is he a maths masters?
I can't remember what it is, but he's one of those
fucking smart cookies.
Yeah, he did.
And a cutting edge mythic raider, or multiple tiers.
You know, if that was required to have any sort of you know, speaking with experience or speaking from a standpoint, if you need to be a mythic raider in order to read data, then He is, so I guess he's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Not that it helped a certain individual who made a video about us being clickbait.
yeah, so like the video started off, and like we're not gonna go through it because it's 26 minutes long, and it's mostly just our video, low opacity played over Torghast gameplay.
Yeah.
Which is, interesting creative decision anyway. But it just starts off by, calling you a known clickbaiter in general, whoa, bad commenter.
I love it when they just good
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah, it's very good. It's very, very good. So where was I at? Yeah, so I accidentally hit the mute button there for a second. I think I cut off one of your words and it annoyed me. But yeah, so we're at he said all that, said our numbers were made up. Just this is a load of made up numbers, which is not true because
That's an
they're not
interesting
made up.
opinion considering.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at what a made up number is. Some of the numbers were made up in that there were a logical conclusion drawn to them from original numbers.
Which we signposted
Yeah,
very heavily
which is,
in the video.
it's made up, but so is any analysis technically. Then if we wanted a little bit of the intent that the person came in with, you've got, before I start reeling on this guy, I believe World of Warcraft is doing worse than, I think, average, I think he said, which kind of shows the intent is just, we're reeling on this.
Yeah.
I'm going to destroy this, which, the marketing proved. It says we're farming this reviews, basically the usual shit where it's like, oh, you're a content creator, you're going to be.
It's basically it's the usual smooth brain angry takes.
Yeah, basically.
This is how I'd characterize it.
Basically. And then says our video is incorrect, which, it's not. And also says he's triggered, which, I'm going to do this casual, cool breakdown of the data here, but I'm really angry at the same time. You're like, okay, well then there you go. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Off
But,
to a strong start.
yeah, so when we get into it, the first topic is Blizzard and the MAUs, which
Yes.
is the how we led with the 46 million back in the day in 2017 down to 26 million recently reported, which is the same as the Warlords of Draenor time.
Yeah.
Which means, I think it was one of the clips said there's a news video said they undid 5 years of growth.
Yes.
Which I think is a good way of putting it, just 5 years of work in the toilet. So he starts talking about that and then says it's an echo chamber that
Apparently.
World of Warcraft is bad. That's the echo chamber we're in.
Interesting opinion.
Yeah, so that's the case where it's like, no, we engage with reality.
Yeah.
The numbers didn't lie, and we didn't fucking lie either. It's like it says, we're. I mean, if enough people say it, you could say it's an echo chamber, but I think if enough people say it and it's also numerically backed up, it's just fucking true.
Yeah, and like I don't think I'm in an echo chamber.
Yeah.
Like as an example, I watched Tally and Hazel.
Yeah.
Different parts of the content space. So I don't know. There's people I follow on Twitter who like the Twitter auth people.
Mm.
I don't think that's called being a negativity echo chamber.
Yep, for sure.
But it was nice to find that out. This fresh new piece of independent research he was able to do on us.
Yeah, and then he goes on to talk about World of Warcraft carrying the corpses of the other games, which is like, I think there's some substantiation to that because it is like their biggest IP. Warcraft is, I believe, by a significant margin, but also it's unfair and unsubstantiated beyond that because it's just like, Overwatch had 10 million monthly active users in October of 2020. That's a that is, if that tracked, that's over a third of what Blizzard actually have, which means it's not carrying the corpses of other games whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah. It then goes on to, talk about how WoRank.io doesn't cover Chinese servers.
And 50% is the 50% being made up is such a fucking stupid point for him to make.
Yeah.
Because it's actually 50.35 was that particular, I believe it was 0.35.
Yeah.
That number near the start of the video.
Yeah.
And there was other numbers that came in and around 50%. So with the primary one being 50, others basically being in and around 50, we were like, well, yeah, that's basically what's there. There's also a bit where he claims we say that it's active subscribers that we're doing. At no point in the video do we say that. We said active end game players. Yep. So I guess that's just him straight up lying to his audience. So that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's making a bunch of assumptions because I would never have said subscribers because who the fuck knows how many subscribers?
Yeah.
You don't have to be subscribed. Well, let's say you don't have to be subscribed to be logged in. Technically true if you're free trial, but you don't have to, log in to be a subscriber. You can be a 6-month sub who never plays a game.
Yep. And you also, you can be subbed and playing the game and not be captured by the data, which is a point we make near the start of the video.
Yep.
I believe the specific phrasing was, "You matter, we just can't track you," because of how the numbers are actually got.
Yeah, because that the 50% and the WoW ranks data he's talking about is the amount of active players with a covenant, active login characters with a covenant. Sorry.
Yeah.
So the amount of characters that have logged in the past month, 28 days, I believe, who belong to a covenant, and it was mostly used for tracking the covenant stacks or covenant split. Sorry, stacks and splitting. My fucking rating here. But it was mostly.
Hey, we don't play the game, so you wouldn't know that.
Of course. Yeah. So it's that idea of tracking how the covenant splits up, but it also gave us all of the active players, or almost all of the active players with a covenant.
Yes.
Which means you can be below level 60, but beyond Threads of Fate, and I believe you counted that data. Yeah, which is I'm going to say that's a relatively small number of players of especially recently, but it's that. And what was the other?
So that number went from, it was like in February or whatever, it was like the low 6 point something million to 3 point something million for 9-1.
Yeah, 6.194 to 27 something, 2791, I think. Oh no, sorry, the 2.7 is the ones with soulbinds, which is active.
Yes, I think it was just over 3 mil.
Yeah,
down from the 6.2. But anyway, let's keep on going, because we should get to the more interesting things like China.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, so it's like WoRanks.io doesn't cover Chinese servers.
Yeah,
that's fine. Chinese data is basically like nigh impossible to get in World of Warcraft anyway, because you don't have access to the API. There's a whole bunch of other things going on. Like, I think you can only, sometimes you'll see Chinese guilds show up in Raider.io and whatnot, but that's ones that have parsed, ones that are manually entered, because you just don't track that data. It's handled by a completely different, it's NetEase handle that stuff, isn't it?
NetEase have license. They got it from the 9. I forget what date it was. It moved from the 9 to NetEase, but NetEase.
Yeah, and the same with Superdata. Whenever Superdata, whenever they existed, God, I miss them so bad. It's only been half a year and I miss them. But World of Warcraft West is how they called it all the time, because they didn't have data for the East.
Yeah.
And if a Nielsen company doesn't have data for Eastern World of Warcraft, or doesn't roll it in, then it must be substantially different, because they have all of the other Eastern data.
Yeah.
Because they
and more importantly, to anyone watching that video, China doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah,
it's a YouTube video. You literally can't access YouTube in China. There could be 10 billion people playing World of Warcraft in China, and it would have no bearing on you, your server, your guilds. So if your response to seeing all of the Western numbers go down is to go, oh, but China, completely fucking pointless to World of Warcraft West, which is the thing that everyone in this entire situation is talking about. So yeah, I don't know. I thought that was odd.
Yeah, and let's have a little think about what it would mean if WoRanks didn't have China, but the rest of the data did have China, which it sometimes does because of how Raider.io picks up data, but we can't
it's not like we were ever mixing those data sources.
Yeah. So imagine if that number was substantially bigger, on both fronts, then all of the rating data, because it includes a lot of China, would look significantly worse by comparison. So if we were trying to farm this for views, if we were trying to make the strongest point possible, you would have been dancing that off the top. Would have been saying, look at this doesn't include China, and look at how fucked it all is. Haha. But we weren't. It was just, here's the data, here's the numbers,
Yeah.
That's what it was. Yeah, and the next complaint, I believe, was about it being an unaffiliated site, WoRanks.io. Blizzard, well, for a start, it scripts off Blizzard's API.
Yes, it's official data. It's not like they're just polling players or scraping via an add-on.
Yeah.
It's the Blizzard API.
Yeah, it's a Blizzard API, and there's very, very small holes in that, which we talked about in the video. And also, what are we going to do? Ask Blizzard?
Yeah.
Hello, Blizzard, can we have all of the data, please? We would love to know exactly how many players are playing World of Warcraft right now. Could you tell us how many people have logged in for, 9.1? And they would reply with, I don't know how you would say this in corporate jargon, after you've put it through 7 different legal people to drive up all your costs. but it would be fuck off.
It would be fuck off, yeah.
It would just be, right, just fuck off. Like,
You've got to use the data that you have.
yeah.
And if the data that you have doesn't paint the picture that you want, you've got to think about the picture that you want.
Yep.
Like if we did this analysis and we found, when we found numbers that actually suggested that no, there was a historically low drop off between patches, and or perhaps just that while it did dip really low in the drought, it went back really high, then that would have been what the video was about. Because the impetus of this video was literally just, let's see what is going on for the average WoW player across the end game pillars of the game via the publicly available data.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I were so vindictive and vindicated that I would be willing to make all that shit up. Because I'm sure that would be a much more interesting life than actually reading data and trying to find trends. If I just made shit up, what supports this? Let's find out. That would have been fantastic. But this idea of like, 'cause the next thing he goes on to say is bringing up Blizzard's own things as if they counterpoint and as if they have different incentives. I mean, I guess technically they can't lie to their investors, which is why they don't give them any numbers and they give them completely waffly, shitty statements that he decides to bring up, like World of Warcraft player and engagement trends since the Shadowlands release are stronger than levels typically seen at this point after an expansion launch.
After an expansion launch is, that's what's important. World of Warcraft did not say Shadowlands specifically. It's World of Warcraft's an overall product. We know the Blizzard track World of Warcraft MAUs and numbers as one combined product across all of its different subdivisions, right? Like modern and classic TBC. So yeah, player and engagement trends since Shadowlands release are stronger than levels typically seen at this point after an expansion launch. So the last time that this happened was the period after Battle for Azeroth launched, 2018. Where multiple parts of the World of Warcraft, parts of the WoW business model that exist now didn't exist then. Yeah. Can you not, any users of the human brain, of the human eye?
Yeah, I mean,
reading? Okay, I guess it does take like a bit of a skill to be able to, I guess like just through company stuff and everything, I've got a bit of experience reading contracts, legal documentation and things like that. And you have to be very anal about the specificity, especially in something like this. Levels of specificity. And then also, I'd say Scott Johnson's quote to the BBC, where he said that he had heard from insiders that the dip is, I think it was along the lines of the most drastic they've ever seen, or more than they had expected.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Which, again, it's relevant here.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the language in specifically is like at this point after an expansion launch. It's like as soon as you spy language that's very hyper specific for no good reason, you go, well, I know why you're writing that.
What is the comparison they are making and why are they making it? They are comparing patch 9.1 to patch 8.1. And if you just thought about it like that, you would basically miss what's actually going on. Where in patch 8.1, WoW Classic didn't exist. Wasn't a thing. And we know, I forget the exact number, but the sub increase for WoW Classic coming out was fucking insane.
Yeah, massively.
I forget exactly, but it was massive. I remember us doing a video on it and all the data that came out.
Yeah. Was it triple maybe? Or something like that?
Double. It was really big.
Yeah.
It was like kind of gargantuan. So yeah, you've got that, which changes what World of Warcraft is. And of course, the release of TBC Classic.
Yeah. So like, I think the point that like I'm trying to make by bringing these statements up is that I feel like there's a general lack of what I'm going to say is qualitative analysis. I don't know what people like use now to describe that, because I think I remember learning that in like early high school, the difference between quantitative and qualitative analysis. So anything that isn't numbers but is thinking, I just call qualitative analysis or looking outside the box. And that's one example. The other example is in the months leading up to and since launch, World of Warcraft reached and sustained the highest players on monthly or longer subs compared to the same period. And that is specifically talking about, that was February, I believe. That was February's earnings call. And the comparison then drawn was to Warlords of Draenor, which is the last time we heard numbers, which was 10 million active subscribers, I believe, in the lead up to launch around that time.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean there are over 10 million subscribers.
Yes.
Because if you actually read what he's saying, or what they're saying rather, it's months leading up to and since launch. So it's a nebulous time period. It reached and sustained highest players Fair, reach, sustained, grand. On monthly or longer subs compared to the same period. But then you think, well, what does that actually mean? Because I don't think anyone's saying in the months up to Shadowlands, World of Warcraft had 10 million subs. No one would have thought that. No human being would have thought that. So I was like, okay, what does this mean? The emphasis must be on the subs. It must be on the time period and the subs. So how do you get more subs? They removed the 1 month game time option, which means those people weren't subbed. Those people were buying a month every time. And historically,
that actually is a thing. They are different. Yeah.
They'll be reported differently. They don't mean the same thing.
Like even in the Blizzard store, like it wasn't called subscription if it was like the game time.
Yeah. And then, historically a lot of people weren't subbed because I never had, it took until I think late Wrath of the Lich King for me to have a subscription to World of Warcraft. But for the entirety of Burning Crusade and whatever Wrath I played up until I got a sub, I went to Argos and got a 60-day game time card. Or if I was unlucky, had to go to game in Ballymena for it. But, it's like that's the problem. You can't just go, they're going to tell the truth. But that's the thing. They can't lie. They don't have to tell the truth. They can bend the shit out of the truth.
They tell a specific truth. It's whether that is reflective of the broader truth. And the other thing here is the 6 month with amount is one of the core pillars of their business model right now.
Yeah.
Shadowlands had a successful marketing and hype campaign, which led to it being at its time the fastest selling PC game of all time.
Yep.
Around the same time that those 6 month lock-ins were happening.
Yeah, huge.
And a lot of the point is the drop off since then.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like the higher it is at that point that we now know it is struggling and is very low, that is a bad thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So
a bad thing.
Yeah. So like most of the point there is like you can't look at their numbers and say they're true. You need the qualitative analysis. You need to think about the numbers being presented, and that's what we did. Which brings us on to
you have to be able to read specific statements, understand their specificity, and do it slowly and with a high level of precision.
Yeah.
And that is seemingly not what was done.
Yeah, because numbers by themselves could mean fucking anything. You just grab two numbers out of this and go, well, everything's going grand, fantastic, excellent. But that's not,
I mean, everyone knows that with numbers. You can do a lot of, Neo Matrix shit on numbers to sort of get the take that you want.
Yeah.
So we should talk about, when we actually sort of dive in then to some of the numbers that we were collecting, it gets to rating.
Yep.
Where we get his first incredibly stupid statement. Normal is useless. He basically said the normal and Alphard don't exist. Now, this is an incredibly stupid thing to say in the context of a video discussing the overall health of World of Warcraft. If you look at World of Warcraft's generally most healthy time, that was, funny enough, during the likes of Wrath of the Lich King, where you had things like ICC 10. ICC 10 was easier than ICC 25, and one of the core changes with Cataclysm, more sort of robustly codifying the raid difficulties and setup, was that it used to be, right, the easier mode, more equivalent to a normal raid today, was the 10 man, then the 25 man would be harder, and then you'd have the heroic version on top of that. Whereas in Cataclysm, the 10 and 25 were tuned to be around the same difficulty, and that basically caught a whole bunch of friends and family raiding guilds out from raiding for quite a significant period of time. For some people, until Siege of Orgrimmar, with the flex difficulty mode that of course morphed into the normal that we have today. Now, him saying normal, giving no explanation why, is really fucking stupid. That's, I mean, pretty fucking obvious, especially given the significance of the normal mode difficulty as it is now in World of Warcraft as a business, looking historically. Also, what we care about is the overall players.
Yeah.
We will get into Mythic because that is where there are interesting things.
Yeah.
And not particularly in the direction I think he thought those numbers were. He maybe didn't think about them as much. But yeah, normal's extremely important. It's the most done mode. It's what most of your average players do. You can't just ignore it because it's not something that you think is important. And yeah, it is true that you will get more stickiness in players who raid Heroic, as in those people not leaving. That's why we haven't left, and we'll get onto that soon.
Yep.
You'll get more stickiness from Heroic raiders than normal raiders, because the Heroic raiders obviously are more invested in raiding, and even more so from Mythic, which I think makes sense given the absolute trials and tribulations that Mythic raiders go through and still do stick with the game, even though it's like 90% of the time they're screaming and then they get to do the raid they actually want to do.
Yeah.
But normal is extremely important because this is about World of Warcraft being a healthy and good game overall, in general, for your average players. That's why we thought that number was very important, because those normal mode numbers, number one, there are loads of Heroic raiders clearing normal in week 1.
Yep.
And stuff like that for gear and stuff, as we did. And I think as you would be incentivized to in this tier because of the premium place and domination sockets.
Yeah.
And that group, even if they only do normal, in many ways are tomorrow's Heroic raiders. So if your point is that, and the drop-off is bad in Heroic, it's not as bad. So if your point is the normal doesn't matter, I mean, are you thinking about the long-term picture? Normal sort of feeds into Heroic. I mean, at least in my time rating, you know, a lot of the people doing, say, ICC 10, we would end up doing ICC 25, grabbing a few pugs. And, you know, slowly over time, doing harder and harder content. And that's how it goes for people. So there's that. Could have also used Heroic, but I'm making content, not a scientific paper. We will go into Heroic here because we could get extra numbers to prove it.
Yeah, to be honest, that was me being a little bit sarky, just because it's the idea of, like, what do you expect this? Do you expect me to walk through every single thought that I had when trying to do this to make this make sense?
Yeah, we're going to,
because that's not how it's made. A lot of this stuff it was kind of internal decisions, but it was all logical decisions that made sense based on my own qualitative analysis of the situation. It wasn't just, I'll just pick numbers out of the blue. It was,
or it's the made up numbers.
Yeah, it didn't make up numbers. It looked at numbers, went, which of these, you know, which of these are actually like the ones that are most important for this video to, you know, tell the best story. Not the best story, but the most accurate story. And then went with Heroic because, like you say, there's normal raiders in there, there's Heroic raiders in there, there's Mythic raiders in there. That's the biggest catchment. I think it's hard to say if LFR would be a bigger catchment, but so many people don't.
I'd hope not.
So many people don't do LFR, but we also don't have numbers for that, so I'd love to see them.
Fuck, I haven't touched LFR in years.
Yeah, I'd love to see them though.
So, yes, the next point then is he does not raid.
Yeah.
Now, Eisen. And hold your horses. It is future me here coming at you with a correction thing. So, regarding the not even raiding bit, we basically drop that line in our doc as a talking point with the intent of properly talking through what was his actual point, which is that the full thing that he basically meant was that we're at 8 out of 10 Heroic and that's basically not even raiding, right? So essentially he was kind of just claiming that like true raiding is Mythic in that. Now, initially, basically, right, just Ron Burgundy looked at it, was like, oh yeah, no, I don't even raid. Well, that's obviously bullshit. Armory me. Everyone can know I raid that way. Yeah, just Ron Burgundy. Even though like I'd watched the full video, I guess should have known. But shit can happen when you're doing something live. That is 100% my bad. And yeah, that is of course an explanation, not an excuse. Now that said, I should engage in the actual point though. That, you know, Mythic is the true raiding and Heroic kind of like the... I mean, his point was that based on the rating that we're doing, that we don't even count as people who can talk about rating. Now, first of all, at the time, we were actually 6 out of 10. Now we are 7 out of 10. We did miss 1 or 2 raid nights because, let's be real, people don't have the biggest appetite for playing WoW these days. Now, I will say that the point that 8 out of 10 Heroic isn't even rating, I think is a completely crazy point to make. I mean, I think if that's how we thought about things, most of the people who played WoW kind of, I mean, just an insane level of gatekeeping, right? I mean, surely, in this case, 8 out of 10 Heroic, of course, we're actually 7, but 8 out of 10 Heroic, that is more raid progress and Sanctum of Domination than the majority of the player base, I would have imagined. I mean, certainly, I think the numbers do suggest that, especially in our case when we're a 2-night-a-week raiding guild, you know? So, we should measure these things. I mean, I don't want to say necessarily in pull count because, of course, if you're spreading your, 2 nights a week out, which means you're doing the same number of pulls but over more weeks. If people are doing Mythic Plus and getting the Great Vault, of course that does make it easier because you're doing it with more gear. That said, not many of us are doing like our high Mythic Plus keys to get gear from the Vault. I'm only 229 as an example. But anyway, look, I'll say this, for me, the idea of Mythic tuning is very appealing to me. It was extremely appealing to me in the past when it was called Heroic, and you could do 10 Heroic. Like say Jinrock Heroic in TOT. So that's the pre-WOD raid scheme. Of course, they changed how raiding worked WOD onwards, and they've kept it ever since. But for a lot of people, for Mythic, it's the logistics, the hard 20-person thing, and then having enough room in your comp. It's the time commitment to the actual raiding, because that's usually what the Mythic raiding guilds are going to be doing, and also the time commitment to the raid supporting progression systems in the game. Right? Because if you're doing Mythic raiding, I mean, you really are going to feel like you should be doing all of the Torghasts and all of the Courtiers, and, getting your extra sockets and all of that stuff. But basically, for the actual point of 8 out of 10 Heroic isn't even true raiding, I think that is extremely out of touch with the vast majority of World of Warcraft players. And certainly if the developers took that opinion, it would be extremely bad, I think, for the health of the game. I think almost everybody can pretty much intuit that. So overall, it is my bad for us getting that particular little bit of it wrong during the initial stream. That is now something that is corrected. And as for the actual point of not constituting or not even real rating, I mean, we all know that's bullshit, right? So there you go. Right, back to the clip. He also, we have it covered way down here at the very bottom of the article, but it was just some of this wank he was going into. The guy who led research in this video is a multi-tier cutting-edge Mythic Raider. So yes, who gives a shit about normal rating?
Yeah, I think that's such a
Anyone
statement.
In chat?
People were saying earlier when we mentioned he said normal is useless, people were saying, oh, that's all I do because that's that's a level I play at. Not even skill-wise, but like time-wise and stuff, which I was completely fine because it's the game. The game is there. You can't just call it useless. It's like, it would be like someone like me who doesn't PvP very much calling PvP useless.
Yeah.
It'd be completely unfair to all the people who like PvP and also the developers who make it.
If it was useless, then why would Blizzard make it? And if your whole thing is basically bending over backwards to say that, WoW had 10 million subs at the start with Shadowlands and it's all actually been, it's not great, as good as it could be, but it's basically a bit more rosy than you're saying. Why would you ignore the mode that drives the most participation? I guess because it doesn't suit his narrative, which is a very funny thing because basically the shit that he accuses us of doing, we don't do, but he does in his own video, which I think just says, if you're going to start your video off by, I'm triggered and before I rail in this guy, maybe that's just your kind of little mental notification of maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I should sit down and think first.
You would think so. But that's the next point is cherry picking the specific Mythic number. Because he accuses, us of cherry picking numbers, and then immediately goes, "Well, I'll cherry pick," and didn't say cherry pick, but goes for an example that proves us wrong, which is the Mythic number, which is there's more Mythic kills on Sylvanas than Denathris a month into each.
Oh, I can't wait to go down to a very fucking hilarious table we have in that one.
Yeah, so it's not even just that; it's just if the qualitative analysis was there, if you showed me that number. Or if I bothered to look at that number, I'd have went, well, that doesn't matter. That's pointless. Yeah. Because there's so many factors that explain this away that it's kind of what
Mythic's also, no offense to the Mythic Raiders, I do respect the game they play a great deal because it's fucking hard and they have to be excellent players.
Yeah.
And look, if there was... I would probably like to dabble in a little bit of that. It's just the whole 20-person and the big robust schedule and all of that doesn't suit how most of the people in our guild play the game, so we don't do it. But Mythic's tiny in comparison to the other modes.
Yep.
And in a way, it's good that it's tiny because it's the fucking pinnacle.
Yeah.
The mountain gets smaller as you go to the top, and it's really fucking cool that stuff exists there and that there are those incredible achievements in the game. But when we're talking overall about the performance in WoW, I mean... Even let's just say that the numbers we're going to talk about don't exist.
Yeah.
If normal goes down a lot and Mythic doesn't go down that much, the take is we have a massive fucking problem. So even if his numbers were actually useful there,
yeah,
it would be besides the point, which funny enough is why we didn't include it.
Yeah, I mean, also, like, again, like I say about making the sort of doing the critical thinking about it, that was Mythic rating over the Christmas period. That's going to take a hit substantially. That's why they usually don't release it before, but they did this time. Like, even just that. But then, you know, actually, I suppose I can't say whether Mythic Denathrius or Sylvanas were substantially harder. I know, I believe Dakor says Sylvanas is significantly easier.
Yes, he
By
does.
comparison, so I wouldn't say that from my perspective, but
Well, it's not from my perspective, but if we look at pull counts, so let's, because I think, is that, yes, there's this mythic point. I think now it's time for our numbers. So let's go to a very fun number.
Yep.
So the Cathal Nathria typical mythic pull count, where what you're essentially finding, I mean, especially if you look at bosses like Stone Legion Generals, which is a very high pull count boss, Sire Denathrius, another very high pull count boss. You know, Kel'Thuzad, average 34 pulls. Sylvanas, average 102 pulls. Your overall pull count across these raids, 841, 428. So, I mean, yeah.
I mean, like, initial, like, if you like, show me that data outright, my first thought is, oh, I guess the...
This is from progstats.io, by the way.
Yeah, so, you know, do you imagine that if the average pull count goes down, there are two things to think about, because it's generally going to be difficulty related, right? So there's two things. One is, you know, either boss got easier or players got better. Boss gets easier is nice because it means, you know, everyone killed him with less pulls. But if it's players got better, then that assumes that the weaker of the mythic player base have left or dropped back down to heroic or something like that. So just kind of little thoughts like that. That's not conclusive on any capacity, but...
So maybe get into some of Dakor's comment. As he says, if you ask most mythic raiders, you'll get pretty much the same answer. Sanctum Domination is quite a bit easier than Castle Nathria due to many factors. Higher stat scaling for classes and specs, more borrowed power with like the Shards of Domination, socket and conduit upgrade items are easier and cheaper to get. Bosses generally are much easier, especially the later bosses after Painsmith, which, I mean, even from some of our heroic stuff. Did he make the point in his video that heroic Sanctum was harder? I
don't remember.
But
I don't remember that.
At least subjectively for me, I've felt that heroic is easier this tier.
It certainly seems easier.
Feels to me anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you know there's Painsmith, which I guess is a bit of a blocker. Although Painsmith heroic, we got in like a few pulls.
Oh, we nuked it. It was
pretty easy.
Yeah, it was literally because the only thing they added was a trap mechanic, and then if you have someone do that right, it's it's normal but slightly harder.
So yeah, here's Dakor saying both the tables are below our table showing both the typical range and average pull counts for each mythic boss across the tiers. As you can see, average pull counts for Sanctum of Domination bosses are considerably lower. There's a few exceptions, but yeah, you can see in this table, you know, boss 10 under half. I mean, look at this with Ner'zhul, or not Ner'zhul, I'm Kel'Thuzad, right? So basically, those points about mythic. Don't really matter too much because of how Mythic is as a slice of the overall like WoW gameplay, and they kind of leave out very, very important factors that impact that number. So think about the numbers harder next time.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly it. Like I have written down here, just it would have been a useless bit of content. We would have said it's the normal and heroic raiders who have left rather than the mythic raiders, because that's what the number showed.
I mean, no shit. Of course, the mythic raiders are going to be more sticky.
Yeah, but think you're in the context of making a bit of content. You know, you want to keep people engaged. So what do? You go, well, that's not very, that's objectively not very important.
Yeah, the shit that is just unimportant filler that doesn't really matter. Yeah. Which I think we've quite robustly proven that this is. And also there's interesting things, impacting, those numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If there's something to say about it that was important, would have said it.
Yeah.
Easy. That's what we did with everything else.
So yes, normal and LFR don't exist. They're not a part of rating. This is what we call objectively false. Now, I'll agree with, I get the principle of that.
Yeah, of course.
But it's an entirely useless point. As you say, then why are there substantially more normal kills in each boss? The normal population is ostensibly normal plus heroic players, since normal is a quick way to gear most of the time. Mythic players can often skip normal, but might but might not, since it could be a valid source of gear before Mythic Week starts, especially if you have a few people in your comp who maybe just want to get another bit of another socket of shards as an example. So that's an odd point. Claiming the Nathria and boss drop off was difficulty.
Yeah, it was just claiming how much that was specifically so much harder, and that's why the drop off was significantly sharper. And it's like, that's a fair bit of analysis, but he compared it to Highmaul and Emerald Nightmare, and there's just not data for those.
Yeah.
So it's like, we're not going to, bring up a point that's largely, not super important. That's the whole thing, like.
Yeah.
It's not going to be.
Plus, I mean, we're comparing to like the recent shit.
Yep.
So yeah, there's that. There's the mid-raid comparison. Anything there?
Not anything major. It's more the fact that there is like, basically the numbers are slightly different if you look at mid instead of end. But that's almost too complicated to bother getting into, because you have to be fair, you have to compare against every single boss, adjust for difficulty again. So there are some valid points to maybe be made in terms of, people got 80% of the way through the raid instead of the whole way, because comparing first and last boss kills kind of leaves out a significant portion in the middle, but didn't think it was important to actually go through that in any capacity.
Well,
because it's not really. It's also it
completely. I mean, the data's
yeah.
all there for people to look at.
Yeah,
we've got like we linked the Google Doc.
I think we did.
Did we? Yeah.
Yeah, it like completely. It just makes it it makes it like kind of apples to oranges as well, because you're not comparing like for like a lot of the time, and that's sort of generated. Basically, this shit's hard, and there's a lot of factors. So we did all of the comparison, all of the analysis. Went, well, here's the important bits. That's what we did. That's what we did.
Yeah, so there's that. The next, the current rating percentage.
Yeah, so he said there's no way to approximate. It's that little bit at the end of the rating segment where we say, here's, our approximation here is there's, I can't even remember what it was. It's that long ago now.
Oh yeah, that was the bit where we very much said, hey, this is like just kind of, not random, but it's the one that we said is like just rough and doesn't really matter, but here's the number.
Yeah, I mean, it was extremely approximate. It was never intended to be a very serious number. It was highly approximated.
And we did not say that it was supposed to be a serious number.
Yeah,
we made it clear that it was rough shit.
Yeah, but the point I want to make is, you said there's no way to approximate. There is, because we approximated it.
Yes.
Like, it was napkin math, but the logic was sound, and you said the logic. We have the between 15 and 20 players per kill on average. It's a very rough average. Get that by number of kills confirmed, then we know that's how many players have killed a boss within some reason, and that was the logic.
Yeah,
as a percentage of the total thing. So
he says these numbers are all completely pointless and made up. Yep. Somebody watching this video might actually think that, but that's what we call a straight up lie.
Yeah, that's a problem. That's the thing. We're not,
and that's why we're here.
Yeah,
like if you had have just calmly refuted a few things and said, "Oh, you missed this, you could have done that," we would have been like, "Oh yeah, sure," we wouldn't be doing this. But it was that you lied. It was that you lied. It was that you did the slander. That's why we're doing this.
Yeah, just literally here to say no. We did the math. We did the logic. We looked at the data. Our arguments are sound, except for places where they aren't sound or are, under scrutiny, which we highlighted ourselves.
Yeah,
because that's what we did. Because we're not writing a paper for submission to the government. We're making a YouTube video.
Yeah.
To be fair, if it was a paper for submission to the government, it'd be significantly more biased.
Oh yeah, true. Because that's how they go. Yeah. Yeah. So, right, there's that. Next, then, Mythic Plus.
Yep.
Where yes, he's left saying mostly correct.
Yeah.
Which basically just means you weren't able to mental gymnastics your way through.
Yeah.
I mean, that's obviously me being a dick, but I mean. I think that's fair enough.
Yeah. I mean,
is there anything else to say in the Mythic Plus bit?
No, the only real thing is I wouldn't mind kind of, if I've got the opportunity to explain why Mythic Plus not been played by a substantial amount of people doesn't bode well for the game, because that was the point that was kind of, it wasn't labored on because it was limited time in that video. But I mean, like, it should be obvious.
Any users of the human fucking brain, Mythic Plus numbers go down. Of course that doesn't bode well for the game. It's one of your fucking pillars of the end game.
Yeah.
Less people doing it is bad.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, it's just, if you're making something and people aren't
What do they
playing
put
it,
in that copium?
I don't. Oh man, it must be good. I wouldn't mind some of that shit.
That sounds good.
It sounds incredible. Sounds fantastic, honestly. Aye. So then I think that's basically it. The M plus stuff, because that was significantly easier data. It was literally, this is how many keystones are being completed. It's down. Can't go wrong with that. Like, can't go wrong with that. So the next thing is he goes back to talk about the MAUs, and it's this case where I like to just kind of highlight. Again, I think where the analysis is lacking, which I think is kind of possibly a decent reason why our video was misunderstood in a capacity, or was, claimed to not be a thing, because the, following our logic must have been, a bit difficult. Maybe we didn't spread it out quite enough. I don't mean that in any harm. It's literally a case of I don't know what I don't know. I've been working with numbers and logic and data for a long time because I'm that kind of person. So I don't know if maybe,
I mean, for the people involved in this video.
Yeah.
Like, you're a computer science grad.
Yeah.
I'm a computer science grad.
Yeah.
Okay. Technically, I was in the game engine master's program, but then I started the games company, and the master's program wasn't offered as a bachelor's, and I basically wanted to quit uni as soon as I could, so I swapped over to CS so I could then immediately graduate. But I'm CS, computers, logic-y, number-y bullshit.
Yep.
You are the same. Dakor is a actual mathematician, man. So I honestly, I think we can do numbers pretty good here.
Yeah. So that's a case where, like, in this example, it's back to the MAUs, and he talks about excluding the dead games. Like, Heroes of the Storm, Diablo 3, Warcraft 3, and StarCraft. For Warcraft 3, and to an extent StarCraft, I kind of go, sure, fine, they're dead as far as projects largely go.
I wouldn't be surprised if StarCraft had more than HOTS. I remember somebody, and you know who they are, telling me that was the case when they saw Blizzard's internal data, but that was like 2 years ago, so who knows if that one's changed.
Yeah, so I feel like StarCraft definitely is a decent amount of users. Heroes of the Storm is dead, but it still gets updates relatively regularly. I mean, compared to World of Warcraft. But, it's like I think they've got 2 heroes over the past couple of years, which is, fair enough. And then Diablo 3 still gets seasonal updates, which means there's still a player base. Otherwise, they wouldn't update it. So to say they're, dead, I think is miscategorizing it somewhat.
Yes.
And then, he goes on to say Hearthstone, World of Warcraft, Overwatch. If we take the bonus MAUs from people being logged in, he estimates that down to 18 million. Down from 26, which is unsubstantiated.
How?
Like, when we made up numbers, we had logic behind the making up of them.
Yes, we told people the assumptions and the premises.
Yeah.
And very close, or closely, carefully said, like, look, this is what this number is, so that people would know not to take those numbers in a super big important way. In those limited cases where it was that, and that's not the shit, that's all of the data that we've got. So just I guess 18 million just came out of nowhere, but whatever.
Well, honestly, if it's for the sake of just let's throw out a number so we can have a logical discussion, that's perfectly fine. But then it's like the split is entirely speculative, and he goes on to say, how do you split this up? Clearly World of Warcraft's at the top, because Hearthstone, based on reports that have come out, it's the worst of them all, he said, which is not substantiated in any capacity. Maybe there's some stuff about Hearthstone, I don't know. I tried to find monthly active users and I couldn't find anything reasonable, because it's a mobile game, so all of your search results are full of fake sites trying to suggest users. But it was pretty, it's pretty substantial at a time where it was, 3 million or something for a while. 3 million, or was that one of the fake ones? I can't remember. I looked this up in a hurry. But it's not dead. It's got at least a couple. And then in October of 2020, Overwatch had 10 million active users. If we speculate that dropped by anywhere between 20 and 40%, that's down to 8 to 6 million. Which leaves, by the 18 million suggestion, it leaves World of Warcraft and Hearthstone with, about 8 to 10 million to share. Which is monthly active users, mind.
Yeah.
Which is not subscribers, it's not active players. It's monthly active users, which is an entirely different thing.
Yes, and that's what we should bring up. He says that we claimed 2 million subscribers.
Yes.
That is a lie.
We did not say that.
And multiple times when I recorded that video, I said active endgame population.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like we said earlier, subscribers, you can't get subscribers. Like, I would never suggest I have any idea how many subscribers there are, because only Blizzard know that number, and even then, I wouldn't be like they probably don't know that number excluding bots and excluding second accounts from players. So how are we ever going to get it? Like, but it's a case of just that. We don't know it. Like,
yeah,
we don't know it, so we can talk about it.
You had Hearthstone is 23.5 million active players in 2020.
Yeah,
and we should note it's had very good content lately.
Yeah.
So Hearthstone could be larger than his reckoning.
Yeah. I mean, that's 23.5 million active players over a year.
Yes, that's
how that splits into monthly. I have no idea, but you know, it's it's fairly substantial. That could literally be 23.5 million active monthly active users. Could technically be. Definitely isn't.
I think there's a lot of spikes there whenever
Yeah.
new like solo adventure. I don't really know with Battlegrounds, but whenever that like
Battlegrounds was big apparently. Had 691 million hours played, I think.
oh, interesting.
Or was it more than that? I think it was that anyway.
Wow, that number was floating around your head somehow. I'm impressed.
I mean, this is why I still remember it was 4,786. Or was it 4,900? Fuck. 4,986 of Pexus crystals,
Of course.
I believe. Yeah. That's why I remember that. Numbers just stick in here sometimes. But yeah.
So, did he say this?
This is one other thing he said about you.
Oh,
yeah.
fuck off. Fuck off. You see, here's the thing, right?
Hmm.
If you're going to be, there's a reason why I'm not being respectful to you right now, sir. And it's because you're not doing that.
Yeah.
If you're going to say shit like this, just fuck off. Fuck off. That's a complete bullshit statement that is easily false.
Yeah.
Provable false. So why? What the? I don't get it. Yeah. But again, it's just that thing of like, you forced us to cover this because obviously it is bad for us if you leave, let's just say 75% of people agree with your video, which is like roughly where some of the likes were at one point. I think it was maybe a bit worse than that. But let's just say, most of those people agree with you. Then cool. You have, succeeded in using lies, duping like 15,000 people.
Yeah.
Now, there's no way that at the head of this, I can let that just go unanswered. So I'm sorry, because of the way you've done this, you have forced this situation. And when we do end up in a situation like this, you really do poison the ability for it to be, a bit more cordial, let's just say. When you're speaking utter fucking wank. Yeah. And certainly when this whole research effort was led by a sort of Mythic Plus key pusher and cutting edge Mythic Raider, I mean, that's clearly a load of wank. And again, I would just say, if you're not sure about something, how about you don't spread a fucking lie?
Yeah,
And look, if this was maybe him just ranting in a stream or something, I wouldn't give a shit. Because sometimes people have lied about us in, stream rants and things, and I've seen that. I've been like, maybe have a wee fucking poke a bit of fun at it, but it's not a serious bit of content.
Yeah.
But it's like when you go and you make it a YouTube video and you're putting the effort into making an inflammatory thumb and all of that shit. I mean, obviously you're gonna have to fucking speak back, like.
Yeah, I think that's the gist of it. It's just trying to correct what people, if there's any misconceptions going about our content out there, I would like to address them.
Yeah, absolutely, especially when people are doing charlatan clown behavior like this guy has. And that's what it is.
Yeah.
I think there's no doubt that's what it is, because most of the points are stupid, and he's basically doing the shit he's accusing us of doing that I think we can quite robustly prove we're not doing. So yeah, basically a bunch of his video is, oh, you only counted normal. Yeah, we focused on the most, first of all, not our primary mode of raiding. We focused on the most popular form of raiding in World of Warcraft, and that is an objective fact because more people do normal. We didn't mention China, because it's not important. It's not important. Yeah. Whenever somebody is talking about, oh, we couldn't find people for our raid, oh, there was this problem, there was that problem. A bunch of people in China playing the game is not going to fucking solve that. For someone who's, I don't know, Australian. Or in North America or in Europe. The game that we care about is WoW West. And actually, WoW East is played in China is, like, in some ways a little bit different with business model and stuff like that anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that stuff on the, the Chinese data. Yep. Where, like, it's just a different game and basically it's not relevant.
Yeah.
The disclaimer about the rough data, we gave all of that throughout the video. He wanted, apparently, yes, because the normal raid data is completely useless, we can look at heroic. Now, in something like this, you would expect, when I say sticky, I just mean retention, right?
Yeah.
You would expect the normal players to be far more like the sort of player who, you know, an expansion comes out, they play for 2 months and they leave. You'd expect for the heroic raiders to be a bit more invested in the game and to stick around a bit more. And you would then expect for the mythic raiders to be the most invested in the game and therefore have the highest threshold of bullshit they can tolerate before they leave. So they'll be more sticky. So when we look at this, there's their heroic number. Those numbers be down.
Mm-hmm.
We look at, say, boss number 1 on Nathria versus Sanctum, you know, down 42, well, really 43 if you round it, percent. 34, 33, 26, 32, 38, 30, 30, 23, 31.
Yeah.
So, you know, we are all down there. But if you look at these numbers, these are numbers that are lower than the normal numbers. You know, for both Nathria and Sanctum. Normal's the thing that people play the most. It's fine if you don't like that and you think that rating should only be heroic and mythic. That's fine to have as an opinion. But we do live in reality, and that's the thing we have to deal with. And that reality is that normal is the thing that drives the most engagement in WoW. Yeah. Now, you could definitely argue that if heroic didn't exist, normal would have less participation. Or, you know, some things like that. You know, the heroic raiders going back, or maybe doing normal, and, you know, if you do normal, then you're done.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's nice to know there's higher you could go, that there is more progression. So I obviously do think that all those difficulty modes should. I mean, actually, I think LFR shouldn't exist. I think it should just be normal, heroic, mythic, to be honest.
I agree with some changes.
With some changes, yeah. We could get into that at a different point. It's a bit beyond scope.
That's at least 2 hours of talking.
Yeah. So Dakor's got lots of fun graphs, like the heroic Nathria percentage guild progress difference. Let's see, what have we got? Just much data. Goes into saying, so what argument you're trying to make? Is it that Christmas, Castle Nathria, had less people participating than during summer, Sanctum of Domination? Well, how come much more people cleared heroic Castle Nathria than Sanctum of Domination? And now are you going to change your mind and say more people are playing over Christmas and summer, even if you were to make the clear argument that Castle Nathria heroic was easier than Sanctum of Domination heroic? Interesting argument in my experience. I don't think that accounts for an 11k drop in the amount of guilds that cleared at least the first boss within the opening month of a raid releasing. Yeah. Looking at the numbers, the most notable difference in the heroic data given above is the massive 11k difference in guilds that cleared the first boss in Nathria compared to Sanctum. We can also see from the data that the amount of guilds that managed to kill heroic Tarragru within the first month is just slightly higher than those who had cleared up to Artificer Zymox, which is boss 4, Castle Nathria in the previous tier. These are all things that are worth thinking about. And now we have to go into Mythic, where you look at numbers and you have to think about all of the factors driving those numbers. Because you look at this, right? You're like, boss 1, Nathria, oh wow, more people killed it in Sanctum. You look at all this shit. I mean, look at Mr. Denny. Only 20 of him dead. Versus 62 for Sylvanas. 210%. WoW subs have increased by 210%. Nah, I wouldn't make that point. But then the thing here that's very important, and I already read through some of that earlier.
Yep.
The thing that's important there is the pull count.
Yep. It's a kind of thing
counts are different.
It's a kind of thing that a pull count will add substantial flavor to the data. We can add that with a little bit of thinking, a little bit of qualitative analysis. And suddenly we've got a takeaway. We can't just look at it and go, well, that number is however over double up. This other number's half down. Does that mean they've equalized? So everyone's playing the game still?
Yeah. So basically, number one, it should be no surprise that the people who do the hardest content in the game are the most invested in the game and the most likely to stick around.
Of course.
It also should be no surprise that in a world where, number one, you are getting more borrowed power in the form of the domination shards and all of the stuff just increasing. That an easier raid has more people clearing the bosses.
Of course.
And this is an easier raid by all accounts that I've heard, including Dakor's own, personal time raiding Mythic Sanctum of Domination.
Yep.
So that's the Mythic numbers. I suppose that's most of it. This is a section he put here, authority to talk about raiding. Let us open this section by saying you do not need to be a cutting-edge raider to be allowed to interpret data concerning raiding, be it normal, heroic, or mythic. That being said, the large majority of the data we collected for both raiding and Mythic Plus was collected by me, Dakor, a multi-cutting-edge raider and moderately high Mythic Plus pusher.
God love him.
See, what's this? On a more broader note, so many people seem to mistake... Oh, yes, this is something that a bunch of people have seem to get wrong.
Yeah.
Yes, so many people seem to mistake that we have a wide and very diverse team of people who each play different games at different levels, having established different ranges of knowledge about any given one. That is the intention of any well-established team, to have a broad range of people who are able to complement one another and fill in knowledge gaps, adding expertise where needed. As an example for Final Fantasy, Yep. What does your list of jobs look like right now?
Oh, my list of jobs.
Because you barely play the game, as we know.
Well, I mean, they're all above 50. That includes all of the crafters and gatherers now. Bards at 80, ninjas at 77, because I've been doing Bosher very slowly.
Mm-hmm.
Actually did Deliver Regina the other day. That shit was really fucking fun. Then a couple 60s, I've played through, I've done a lot of the early work because I do intend to have at least one of every role at 80 before Endwalker, which is going to be a lot of Bosher, to be honest.
A lot of Bosher.
But also, I liked a lot of the job quest stories, so I wanted to make sure I did the ARR version of those, and also clean up my armory chest. So I mean, fairly rookie numbers, all things considered, because I haven't updated it, but I could check my spreadsheet for how many levels I needed to complete. I think I still need another 300 and something levels across all my jobs.
Nice.
Which is going to go up to 500 and something, or low 600s in Endwalker, because every job will get an extra 10, and then the 2 jobs will get an extra... They start at 70 and an extra 20 from each of those. So yeah, though, it's not to say I'm an extreme expert at FF14, but I've played a fucking
Tom and Matt.
Yeah, I've played a substantial amount of it, and I've played with Tom and Matt quite a bit.
Who are our go-to guys for that game in our guild/free company, and they are both big veterans.
Oh, extreme veterans,
extreme veterans,
dangerous veterans.
Yeah, so
yeah,
I think a lot of people have an emotional reaction to things, and then they sort of blow up in a little bit of a moment without thinking. I think this is one of those cases, and unfortunately, it was just a degree of mistruth, of slander, that we very much couldn't allow for a situation where that went unanswered. Just because we have a larger channel and stuff like that, number one, sub count doesn't matter, view count matters. 20k is a chunky enough amount of views, and it would be expected to go up over time.
Sure is.
So if that's floating around, we're going to fucking respond to it. We're not just going to, because those 20,000 people see that, and then they tell their friends, oh yeah, well actually, this guy who I go to for, I don't know, Mythic Plus videos or something. I forget exactly what the focus of his channel is. He told me this about those guys, so, watch out about those. Right? So it's, word of mouth and shit like that. Funny enough, from being on the internet for a long time and running this channel for over 8 years, kind of know how thoughts spread. And yeah, we have to do that. I'm sorry that you set yourself up for this, but you did. This is what happens. Now, of course, for the audience, you guys watching this, just don't go anywhere near the channel. Don't leave any comments. Don't do any bullshit. Because if you do that, it will be a pain in my ass. It'll also be a pain in his ass. Generally, everyone will have a sore ass. You know what? Pain in the ass. Let's just take that as its little phrase and not think about it anymore.
Sitting down too long. Yep.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so just be a pain in the ass for everyone. So don't. But yeah, we do have to talk back and clear the shit up.
Yeah. I think I said this before. As far as I'm concerned, it's mostly we researched that video. I'm confident in what it says. I'm confident in the conclusions I came to. If they're under attack from anyone, I will gladly be like, yeah, well, here's how you're wrong, or here's how if I were wrong, here's how I was wrong. Fantastic, excellent.
And it's just so fucking funny how the TLDR of this in a way, is actually we're guilty of just about nothing you accused us of, unlike you, who seem to be guilty of most of the things you accused us of.
Yep.
Which is all quite fun. I think that's mostly it for the segment, unless there's anything else you want to add.
Nope. I think I'm all.
Right,
I've
sweet.
said everything I need to say.